Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Mad Scientist Roundtable. This is episode 9 on cannibalism, and I am Chris Cogswell, and I am joined by my co-host...
Marie Mayhew.
So, Marie, we got some exciting stuff today.
Is it a tasty subject?
It's going to be a very tasty subject, you know what? So, we are sorry for the delay in the episode going online. We're switching over to slightly different recording methods and different recording styles and whatever, and so there's just a little bit of leeway, I guess, in the delta, the plus or minus T for our start here. But anyways, we're pretty excited about this episode, so we are going to talk about cannibalism in all of its forms, the many different types of cannibalism that are out there, and yeah, it's going to be pretty gruesome. It's going to be good. So if you are upset by lurid stories of people eating other people, this might not be an episode for you.
People in general, yeah.
Yeah, this may not be the episode for you, but it's going to be great. I'm excited, Marie.
I'm very excited.
So let's get right into it. All right. Cool. Welcome to the Mad Scientist Roundtable. Tonight's episode, Cannibalism.
So, here's what I don't get about cannibalism. And I think it's like, to me it doesn't make a lot of sense, but cannibalism is still hugely popular. It's popular in practically every area of popular culture, and it's very romanticized in a lot of ways. Like,
it is extremely romanticized. Yeah.
Yeah, and almost I don't want to say fetishized or idealized, but it's like all of the, like, you get a good horror story and something like, again, like the most popular one of recent times, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and Hannibal the TV show, even though it got canceled, still like hugely sort of this idealized anti-hero of the cannibal, and basically you're talking about somebody who eats other people. Really, I mean, there's not
basically,
a lot of,
right? Not a lot of nuance there.
He's an excellent dresser. He's probably a great
good
cook.
Hair, looks good.
He's
supposed to be a world-class cook, in fact.
A world-class cook, an excellent psychotherapist, and he eats people. So it's just like, I have a hard time understanding why I should feel compelled to have interest in that cannibal. But it's like, it's so persuasive, and that's, I think, what I have struggled with. Is like, what's that about? What's up with loving people?
Well, you know what? People? So I think there's a bunch of different areas that this touches on, right? So, so first off, I think we can generally say, so I think in society generally, and especially in American society, we kind of we do fetishize, not in the term of like a fetish where you're like, I don't know, wearing leather and shit, right? Like, in terms of fetishizing, what we mean here is where, like, you turn it into a desirable thing, right? You kind of commodify it, you codify it into this interesting thing that everyone wants still, for some reason. And you may not understand why. Like Marie's saying, she doesn't understand why this idea of the cannibal anti-hero sells as well as it does, because it doesn't appeal to her. The thing that I find so interesting with it is, at least, I kind of think it's partly the idea of so you brought this up when we were going over our kind of intro to, like, okay, what are we going to talk about, was the idea of the apex predator, or the dominance sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So so we're gonna talk about kind of three major sorts of cannibalism today in this episode, and they're kind of three areas where cannibalism becomes kind of boxed in generally, and some of them are so. The thing is, when you're talking about something like a serial killer or someone with a very interesting, very complicated paraphilia, like a psychosexual predator. I've always today I woke up and I was like, I'm going to use the word psychosexual in a fucking sentence, and I did it, Marie. I did it, and I didn't do it at work. I didn't do it at work.
Check that really box. Dude, double win. Not only because HR somewhere, like the HR rep just woke up in a cold sweat. She was like, she's all.
Did those words come together?
And she's like, what? Oh, okay. Phew. He's not. All right. It's after hours. I don't care what Chris says.
So anything is generally the thinking is now anything a serial killer, anything that a serial killer does as part of their modus operandi is sexually driven in some way. It's part of their ritual, and generally they believe, at least, it's kind of portrayed this way, and it's kind of hard to parse the actual science and psychology versus the bullshit that gets out there in the media. But the generally held popular belief, at least, that everything a serial killer does is linked in some way to their sexual satisfaction. And so that's sexual satisfying, or sexual, like a paraphilia, cannibalism as a paraphilia, which, for those that don't know, paraphilia is the opposite of a phobia, right? So if philia means that you like something, and phobia means you don't like something. So to have a paraphilia means you have an unnormal, a para like of something sexual. So So anyways, Chris clearly has read too many books about serial killers. Like this thing, listen, this thing could become a true crime podcast at any day, Marie, all right? If this science shit doesn't work, we could jump right into the pool of true crime. So,
dude, I gotta tell you, I know!
We have to do some episodes on that.
I do love
true crime. So anyways, there's,
I would also say that there's a lot about control, right?
Yes.
Which kind of fits in with the whole
paraphilia. So that
notion that it's like someone who's very tightly run, and is their narrative, everything fits within that sort of set of what they're
100%. So
everything.
I was going to say, we're talking about this box, and so the paraphilia cannibalism is sort of its own bigger box that kind of fits into everything, or fits everything else in it. The other two subtypes, I would argue, are the revenge or dominance cannibalism, which is what you were just describing, and then the magical or spiritual, like the body has some kind of meaning cannibalism, right? That the body has a special significance, and so eating the specially significant object gives you power or something like that, right? Now, I think that we as a society identify with the dominant or revenge cannibalism archetype, right? Just like we, whatever. There are movies where, like, the guy in thick-rimmed glasses who records a podcast with his friends over the internet, right? He gets a milkshake poured on his head by the big muscle hunk, right? Those stupid hunks. Goddamn hunks.
Jock.
We kind of today act like we identify more with that nerdy guy, but really for the vast majority of history we identified with the hunky guy, right? The argument would be, this is something we're going to get into later on in this episode. Everything we're going to talk about here is going to verge very close to what is known as a just so story, which is this idea of, it was postulated by Stephen Jay Gould about evolutionary biology. People would make these stupid arguments like the reason that guys that play guitar is that it is sexually effective. Exactly. It helps them propagate their genes, right? And so everything people do becomes all about just the ability to send their genes, and it's a gross misunderstanding of evolutionary biology. And philosophers love to do it, and so it pissed off.
And doesn't explain
not at all. Marie,
right? There's your outlier right there.
So anyways, the interesting thing I think with this idea of a revenge sort of cannibal. So what do we mean by a revenge sort? I think the perfect example is, as you said, Hannibal Lecter. Right?
Yes.
So a character who Hannibal in the books, and I guess in the TV show, I only got to watch like one season of the TV show, and I did like it, but I love those books.
I will say, yeah, man, like, he's actually really, that was a very well done TV show, and I liked the fact, you know, quick pop culture diversion here. I mean, imagine coming into the most iconic, or one of the most iconic villain roles. It's like stepping in and becoming the new Darth
it's like
Vader,
a huge,
right? Like, it's like Sir Anthony Hopkins is that character, and how do you even touch on that brings anything new or anything that's interesting to that role? And I think what's his name, Mads
Mikkelsen.
Yes, Mads Mikkelsen. Yes, something close to that. I think did a really wonderful, low key, charismatic, still very humorous take to it, and was really good with the foil of the
Grant.
FBI agent. I can't remember his name. Yes, you know.
Oh, I know,
yes,
Marie.
Yes.
I have read those books like 50 times, probably. I love those fucking books. Those are like my go-to books. If I'm ever like, I'm going to the beach, I'll just bring like 3 of the Hannibal Lecter series, and I'll just read them through. So the interesting thing with Hannibal is, and as a character, the interesting with Hannibal is the reason why he's a cannibal is something psychologically whatever happens when he's a child, and it ingrains in him.
Spoiler alert!
A spoiler alert from like. That's not the worst of the books. The worst of the books is Hannibal Rising. That book was shit. But the third one, Hannibal, is still really good.
That book was shit.
And that movie was shit too. Good God. But anyways, the idea is that cannibalism becomes linked in his mind with dominance, with revenge, revenge about being wronged. And so throughout the books, anyone that he kills and eats has done something to him that could be just as simple as like, you know, snubbing him. It could be as simple as making him feel like you were rude, right? So one of the famous examples is the flautist, the flute player for the Baltimore Philharmonic. Hannibal is at a production, and one of his favorite pieces is ruined because the flute player is not very good, and so he kills the flute player and serves his brains to the people on the board of the Philharmonic because how dare they ruin such beauty, right? That's like, and the thing is, like, people don't. I don't think people necessarily. Well, besides that,
no, probably not.
I don't think people look at that and say, wow, I wish I could do that. But I do think people want that drive for revenge, right? And even something petty, right? Yeah. The what is that? The saying, the banality of evil, right? We deal with unkindness and evil, if you want to call it that. We deal with unkindness, at least.
Well, slights and sort of discourteousness, and it's like when I think of Hannibal Lecter, I think of somebody who's got this code of manners, right? It's very, it is this chivalry, right, and this mannerism that it's very tightly.
And the thing is, as
wrapped,
you said,
right?
it's tightly wrapped. So even the smallest infraction leads to an extreme response. Yeah. And sometimes I think people want that. You know, we all want that. We all have that animal instinct. The guy cuts you off in traffic, and you're like, you know, man, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think everyone has.
I catch up with you, and you're a fucking In-N-Out burger, baby.
Like, you know, and I mean, listen, I'm on World Star Hip Hop all the time. All right, I see that happen in humanity every day from my phone. Okay, the thing is that. You know, I think and the thing is too, cannibalism is an interesting case of it because cannibalism is so taboo, right? It's so taboo that it becomes more than, you know, it's not enough to kill the person. You have to eat them too, right? You have to consume them. It's the ultimate degradation, right? Is the way that we view it, the way I view it at least, is the ultimate, like, you know, you're desecrating a corpse, right? But and that's the thing, right? Like, people, I think people would argue that Dexter Morgan from the Dexter books and series is a better, still a bad person, but a better person than Hannibal Lecter, right?
Because he doesn't. Yeah, I look at it almost like with cannibalism. It almost goes back to the apex predator, right? People are biologically, and I'm going to piss off a lot of the listeners by saying this. I'm sorry, but like, really, there's a handful of apex predators, and humans are unique in the fact that we can live anywhere. We can build fire. We can do all of these.
What you're saying, Marie, is we can move.
Evolved.
We can move to any neighborhood and fucking ruin it. That's what you're saying.
We can gentrify the shit out of any
We're bringing
given
a Whole
neighborhood,
Foods. We're gonna fucking destroy the culture.
What? Exactly.
Oh, God.
We're gonna we are the plague.
I know,
in
yeah.
that kind of respect. But when you get to that point, there's very few ways to almost evolutionary one-up on that. And the only thing that I think, like, and especially when you see it with Hannibal, it's like, I am going to erase your totality for this insult, right? Which again can be very slight, but it always seems like with him it is almost culturally kind of culturally driven. Like there's mannerisms, or they've insulted his taste, and so he's going to cook them and eat them, or cook them and serve them to others.
Well, you know
like
what?
They're animals. He slaughters them like they're not even human.
I think is the most important point of it, is that you are.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said, okay, Marie, you just said some really interesting stuff. I'm not just trying to blow it. And
I don't even
for it to come out that way. Like,
I don't even
wow,
like
Marie,
him.
So smart. This podcast is fucking awesome.
Deep, smart. You know what? But it is fucking awesome. Let me tell you, my friend.
Yeah, it's okay.
Awesome. We're coming up. These gems. We haven't even gotten into the puns.
Into the fucking puns.
I hope listeners at home should be like doing chalk marks about how many bad puns.
Puns. So, okay.
Bad puns about cannibalism.
Back to the meat of the matter. So this idea of cannibalism degrading the other person to the level of a non-conscious animal, right, is actually extremely interesting. I wonder if anyone has done any kind of, I don't know, like a philosophical treatise on cannibalism. I'm sure there's plenty of freshman philosophy papers on like the fucking, the existential hero and Dexter. Like, you know what I mean? That's always the shit that happens.
God, yeah.
But
I think I
definitely wrote a bunch of those. Jesus, man. My poor Professor DeVries having to read through my existentialism papers. So the thing is, the thing with So for those that don't know what an existential hero is, it comes from a long line of philosophy called existentialism, a long line, kind of a short line, frankly, of philosophy called existentialism that kind of goes from, say, Soren Kierkegaard, and none of the existentialists called themselves existentialists at the time, but it pretty much went from Soren Kierkegaard, and included people like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus and Friedrich Nietzsche and all kinds of different people. Yes. Martin Heidegger sometimes is included in the list. There's just a whole slew of them. But one of the important views of the existentialists were that morality should not be an objective thing. Morality is fully subjective, right? You should live how you want to live. And so this idea of the existential hero comes a lot from Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch or Superman, this person who is broken out of the master-slave dialectic of society. So this idea that, why do you act the way you do? Well, you don't kill and steal and take what you want and do what you want because there are societal pressures on you. Not because there's any objective moral reason not to. You do it because someone has taught you not to do those things. And
because it's the socially appropriate
and if you were able to break free of that societal constraint, you could control the world, basically, right? You could do what you wanted. And so that's the idea of this Ubermensch, this person that exists outside the bounds of normal society. And characters like, Dexter, Hannibal Lecter in many ways, all kinds of pretty much every anti-hero you can possibly think of would be part of that idea of this existential hero.
Especially ones that are sort of on this, again, another bad pun, but on the despicable side, like the ones that aren't like, because you have like the hero that is like Luke Skywalker, right? Which you can argue is not the existential hero, but is more of the archetype of what a hero is, in that they adhere to a social morality and they are pursuants of that.
They're almost right. They're almost flawed in their followance of the good. Sometimes they make non-pragmatic decisions in the sake of taking the good.
Yes.
Whereas
they leave Dagobah, man. They're just like, no, man, I gotta go save him up on that Cloud Kingdom or whatever it is, because it's like, no. You should have. No, all right, fine. Sorry, but yeah, I think, and that's the big, like Chris was saying with existential. It's like it comes out of, I would say, with existentialism, it almost comes out of sort of the horrors of
absolutely,
World War I, and sort of this darkness of the void, and like, why are we doing this? This makes no sense. We're pursuing things that are fleeting, and I don't understand, why I go to work. I don't understand why I pursue these things that ultimately will end in nothing because I'm headed for the grave, right? And so the flip of that becomes, well, those are the things that hold you down.
Yes,
those are the things those are the entrapments that will ultimately kill you before you're actually dead. And the goal is to rise above that and to not have any kind of constraints in your life, and to constantly be able to reevaluate and understand your life anew every moment, and be like, I constantly am choosing this action because it's what I want to do.
And the big problem with that, I mean, I'm sure we all have seen the big problem with that already. I'm certain is the fact that other people exist. Right?
Fuck you up.
Other people have the right to live happily and not be violated as well, right? And that's the part of the existential hero. That's part of these characters like Hannibal or Dexter or whoever, that they're able to dehumanize the other person. And I think it's a fundamental thing, Marie. I can't believe we didn't think of that before. I feel like you blew my mind, man.
It's like, I'll tell you what, it's the Macintosh.
it's the new computer.
Macintosh.
Now,
it's the Macintosh. Well, like Mark Twain said, I believe it was Mark Twain. Kind listener, you can Google it. You can, of course, correct me on this. You can swing your fist in the air as much as you want. Right,
your right to swing your fist extends as far as my face. Exactly. Yeah, that is a very interesting question though. It's a very interesting question still, and there's a lot. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of philosophy still out there to be discovered. So, anyways, good stuff. Nice. All right, let's move on to section 2.
So, besides revenge cannibalism, which is tasty, you also have sort of the spiritual notion of cannibalism, which, again, has various roots and has various, let's say various mores about it, but it's the idea that you eat other people either because you're spiritually compelled to, which can be seen in like Algonquin myth, or you're eating them to take on the strength and the identity and the soul of your dinner, which is a very different idea than being your then revenge or inadvertent cannibalism, which we didn't even get into, which is like I accidentally ate someone, which is an entire. I feel like that's almost a sitcom treatise right there. Seriously, we could pitch that to Fox and have it. Dude, we could be rolling in the money for that.
We could fucking pitch that to Fox News. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Continue.
story for another day.
By the way,
yes,
we're doing a bonus episode.
Oh, I opened the door. I stared into the void and I saw Fox News, and now I have unleashed the monster. Chris Cogswell, go ahead.
So we are going to do a special episode, a bonus episode where we basically yell about science and politics. It's gonna be phenomenal. So
we're not just going to yell. It is going to be like Tokyo meets Godzilla, my friend. That's what we're going to do.
So it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be pretty good. So
yes.
Anyways, continue, Marie. about the continue, Marie.
I was excited. I got excited there. Okay.
So excited. Okay.
And now I even lost my place because I was so excited because I started to think about what I'm going to be talking about. I was like, I got the CBO scores. I know everybody on the CBO staff that we're going to talk. Okay, so basically, there are the two kinds. However, the thing with sort of the spiritual quote unquote idea of cannibalism is, again, you're taking on the soul of the other person. So
yes,
and this has been again in lore, in legend, historically, in human sacrifice, all the way down to sort of more recent times. But it's still, it is a juxtaposition to sort of the angry, like, I eat this person to deny their existence, to I eat this person to affirm and celebrate, quote unquote, their existence, and take this and embody their existence. So I don't know if there's several different myths about it. I would say the one that I'm always interested in, and again, they do pick this up in Hannibal, both the TV show and others, the Wendigo, which I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, a Algonquin myth of the spirit that roams the forest, that is basically this demon who, if you encounter it, you will be possessed to eat other people. Yeah. So it's this idea that you will, and it's not exactly revenge, but I would say it's definitely this spiritual aspect that if you come into its contact, that's what it possesses you to do. Yeah. But the problem with it is you embody all of the souls of these people, but you will always be famished. You will never be sated by your appetite. Your appetite always exceeds.
It's the basic story of the werewolf, right? You become inflicted with this thing. Your appetite will never be sated, and you're just going to keep eating other people until it's over, right?
Yes, an American Werewolf in London.
Yes, right. Now, the thing that's really interesting with this is, so this has a lot to do with the idea that the body is a magical thing, right? It's a vessel for this thing we don't understand called the consciousness, right? Or the soul. People want to call it that, right? Yes. It's very strange to think that at the moment of death, right, you cross from being alive to dead, that this body stops being associated with that consciousness, right? It's very hard for people to think that way. And I think it's honestly one of the biggest...
It's strange.
It's extremely strange. And it's strange, it's one of the biggest questions we still have left to answer, right? It's a very weird thing. And it's for anyone that's had a relative die, right? And a relative that they've seen the body of, or, whatever, it's very hard to go from a person to a object, right? Because that's ultimately what a corpse is it's an object without any meaning, any significance besides personally to you, right? If you take the scientific view, if you take this more spiritual view, then the body has some significance. It was once yours, right? I mean, in the last episode on Shadow People, we talked about how in some cultures the shadow itself is considered to be a part of you, right? Not just a thing that happens because light doesn't transmit through your body. No. Right?
It's the negative.
It's right. It's something that connects to your spirit. And so in the sense of other people taking on the body of someone else to become like them or to take on their properties, that's kind of like that's almost a person in the, I don't know, a person in the Middle Ages might have thought that was a more logical way of thinking of it than we do. I doubt that very highly, actually. I'm just thinking about the kind of giant trench graves they fucking dug and stuff. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no,
it has very magical and very kind of important significance to a lot of people for different reasons. Now, the thing that I find so fascinating, Marie, is that that is the reason that a lot of real cannibals give for why they've eaten people. Mm-hmm. Okay? So there's a case of... I think I'm saying his name correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Please don't eat me. His name is Issei Sagawa, or whatever. Issei Sagawa, I think is his name. He, in 1981, in Paris, murdered and ate a friend of his, a Dutch woman named Renee Hartevelt. Now, the thing was, crazily... He had claimed that he had been a cannibal his entire life, pretty much. He always had cannibalistic desires, right? He always wanted to. How
do you?
It becomes a weird. The argument here would be that it became kind of a weird sexual thing, right? Again, if you're doing it to take the properties of someone else, if that's what he thinks. So this is the thing. Let's go back to the beginning here. The reason that he said he killed and ate Hartfeld, this woman, Renee, was that he wanted to become beautiful like she was. Right? So he thought that he was ugly and whatever, and she was beautiful, and so he wanted to eat her to become beautiful. Right? Now... He was charged and sent to a mental hospital, basically, for violent criminals, and then was released into Japan. And he's been a minor celebrity since he was released. He's been in a movie. He was in a movie. He was in a movie titled, the English title would be "Unfaithful Wife, Shameful Torture." He's written a couple of books about the murder and eating people.
Fitzgerald says there's no second acts, right? There's no second acts. It was clearly just moved to Japan. Okay, you can eat some people and still, cash in the royalties.
He has become he was for a time a restaurant reviewer.
Oh, what? Oh,
for
come
a
on.
Japanese magazine titled Spa. Okay. He has claimed.
What am I doing wrong?
I don't know. How can you come back from that?
What am I doing wrong?
How can you come back from that? It doesn't make any fucking sense.
No.
You fucking eat someone. You admit to it. You fucking murdered someone, and you become a fucking. You get to write restaurant reviews. I want to be a restaurant reviewer. What the fuck?
There's an excellent chance I may consider eating somebody if I actually could be a restaurant reviewer.
If I could stop working and become a restaurant reviewer.
Here's the idea. Here's where we're going to let you write reviews for the New York Times, for whatever, Paris, for whatever. All you got to do is just try a rib. Check this out. Goodness. Try some fricassee. And I'd be like, okay.
Now here's the issue, right? Here's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Here's the issue.
I mean, that's an issue anyways. There's another side to this idea, though, of the body being magical or important, and therefore cannibalism being something kind of worthwhile, something that's important to do, right?
Right.
The other side of that is what is known as endo-cannibalism. Okay? Endo-cannibalism is basically the practice of eating the flesh of an honored relative. So you do it within a system, within a society, and you eat the person's body because you want to honor them by not allowing their body to decay. Right? They remain a part of the tribe. They remain a part of the society.
Yes.
Right? Now here's the thing, right? This is what percentage of the US population is Christian? Right? Something like probably 60% maybe?
Yeah, I think in the high 50s.
50, high 50s? So 50% of the US population believes that that's what they're doing every Sunday.
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
is
with
Jesus'
the wafer.
body
Yes,
and blood is transmuted. The host in the wine is transmuted into his body and blood, and you're consuming it to become like Jesus.
Yes.
Right?
You are embodying,
It's
That's
not
an excellent point.
It's not that weird of a thing for us, right? Now, here's
where it gets weird.
I mean, that's kind of weird, Marie.
Well, okay, so I will say, I'm not gonna, I would say what's weird about it is normally the person's dead, right? Of natural causes.
When
you decide to do this. Or if you decide like, hey, Jesus Christ, again, you are eating his flesh, you are drinking the blood, and that is a huge symbolic, it's a wafer.
Right, and then listen. It is symbolic. We're not.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Like, listen. I was raised a good Catholic boy, Marie. I know not to take things literally. Okay, so just because if you think it is literal, fine. But we're not making any claim either. Fucking
No. I was going back to your other. I'm assuming that our viewers probably don't. If what we're saying had also trigger alert. If what we're saying actually drives you to cannibalism. Hey, man.
Listen, they were going to be offended before. Listen, we're talking about cannibalism. I think before we got to the tricky theological questions, they were already offended.
Already offended. But I would say with Renee did not die of natural causes necessarily.
No, she was murdered.
So she didn't have. Yes, she was murdered. And so it's like that's to me. It's like okay, so the what was it called? The
endocannibalism.
Endocannibalism is like that's the corpse.
I understand what you mean.
Yes, the person's they've shuffled off this mortal coil.
Right.
They are now gone.
Okay.
And you've got this, but if you've got somebody who's alive and kicking, that's a little different.
Right. So we're going to get into that's actually the next section here is the tricky moral questions. But I had 2 points. I had 2 things actually. I want to read a section from paper, but first, what's really interesting is when you're charged, like if the police found out that you were a cannibal, there is no law against cannibalism on the books in most places, right? There's no law because how fucking often does it happen, right?
Whoa. So in the United States, there's actually no federal or state-driven I think
it depends on the state, but in general, no. Right? So what you get charged with is things like desecration of a corpse. Or you get charged with like murder for murdering the person, right? Yes. And actually, that was the case with Sagawa. Was there is no charge for cannibalism, so he got in trouble for murder, I think. But still, there's tricky legal ways to get around it. But one thing that's really interesting is, do you know what mopery is, Marie?
No.
Okay.
I'm still hung up on the fact that there's states out there that think, hey, I'm going to deny you coverage and dictate what you can do with your body.
You can fucking eat someone else's body.
But hey, man, let's BBQ.
So, okay, Mopery is from. The only reason I know about Mopery is from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which we talk about before every fucking episode practically. And if Kevin Smith is listening or Jason Mewes, we would fucking be intensely happy. Please contact us. That'd be amazing.
Oh my God. You know what? We're going to stalk your asses. We may not eat you.
Don't say that, Marie.
Stalk your asses. This is good shit. I love them so much. Anyways, keep going.
Okay, so in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I think it's in that one, or maybe it's in Mallrats or Chasing Amy or whatever, but someone asks what mopery is, and Jay says that it's flashing. Or no, I don't even think it is from that. I think I'm getting this mixed up with my friend again. When I was a kid, I think on the school bus, someone told me that mopery was flashing someone who couldn't respond. Is what mopery was. But what actually mopery is it's the action of committing a minor or petty offense such as loitering. Right? I think what I'm thinking of is in Jay and Silent Bob when he's like, what's suspicion of mischief? And he's like driving around without a car hood. But anyways, okay. Now here's the thing. Eating people though is not good for you. Okay, you shouldn't be eating people. This is from a paper on.
Here's the public service announcement.
This paper is titled "Mortuary Rites of the South Four and Kuru," from the Philosophical Transactions B of the Royal Society of London Publishing House, biological sciences section. Now, here's the thing: Kuru is a very rare disorder, basically a neurodegenerative disorder. So your brain, it's a prion disease. So basically your brain becomes a sponge, pretty much.
Yes.
Now, the word kuru comes from the foray word kuria or guria, which means to shake. Because when you get this disease, your body starts to shake because your brain isn't working anymore, right? Now,
because it's Swiss cheese.
Now, this became important because the foray tribe of Papua New Guinea practiced endocannibalism, or funerary cannibalism. When someone of the tribe died, they would eat their body, and so this prion disease spread like fucking crazy, right? Now, here's the thing: it was an epidemic for a small period of time. Right, and it has a long incubation period. The incubation period is between 10 to 50 years. Like other prion diseases, it can be very long, right? Now, the interesting thing is that it appeared to transmit mostly to people who ate the brains, and the females of the tribe and the children usually ate the brain. And that's where most of the prions are concentrated because it's a brain disorder, right? And it was most prevalent amongst children and women. Now, here's the thing. If you Google the word Kuru, K-U-R-O, or K-U-R-U, rather, it is also the name of a shoe company who could not be fucked to Google the fucking word of their company before they choose the name, okay? That is ridiculous. That's like, that's like naming your, it's like naming your fucking, I can't even think about it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No.
Oh, Marie, I have a new T-shirt company brand. You don't want to hear what it's called?
Tell me, Chris.
It's called Sodomy.
Oh,
it's like what are you doing? Right? It's called AIDS. My company's name is Parkinson's. Like, are you fucking were you an idiot? Like, what's? Oh my god, I can't get over it. I could not believe that Kuru is the name of an actual fucking company.
I actually think those are actually pretty good names for T-shirts.
Anyways, okay, so this is from this paper, Mortuary Rites of the South Foray and Kuru, by Jerome T. Whitfield, Wandagi H. Paco, John Kalinge, and Michael P. Alpers. The intro goes as the follows, quote, "Early anthropological studies in the Kuru-affected region suggested that the reason for the practice of eating dead kinfolk was primarily gastronomic, and that it had no ritual or spiritual role, despite the normative rules about who should or could consume various parts of the body at mortuary feasts. Later works have explained the role of endocannibalism in the epidemiology of Kuru and emphasized that the body was eaten out of love as well as for gastronomic appreciation, which was not the intended purpose of the practice but its result." So sidebar here. So they're saying that they ate it because
gastronomic appreciation.
Like they ate it because of love, but also it kind of tasted good. So like these funeral things, like once Uncle Barry looked like he was getting kind of old, people were like, "Let's fucking do this, dude. Let's get into it."
He looks good.
All right. They also
gastronomic appreciation.
They also
is the worst way ever.
Oh boy.
To say.
Oh boy.
To be like, let's just own up. They ate him because he looked tasty. Let's just own it.
Okay, let's continue. They also pointed out the importance of kinship, gender, and age in the participation at mortuary feasts to the transmission and spread of the disease. More recently, the term transumption has been used to describe the eating of dead kinfolk among the foray. Transumption has been defined as the mortuary practice of consumption of the dead and incorporation of the body of the dead person into the bodies of living relatives, thus helping to free the spirit of the dead. This practice had deep significance for the foray people and their neighbors. Now, that's really interesting because it basically says that when... So the thing is, in foray culture, they have this idea of 5 souls of the person, right? And so only one of the souls gets to the land of the dead immediately at death, right?
Okay.
Other ones are kind of stuck in, like, one of the souls, the Amma, is kind of stuck on Earth. These other ones are stuck on Earth until these funerary rites are performed. right?
Which one's the most tasty?
Come on, Marie. So the idea is that the reason that they're eating their relatives is because to help them move on, right? You can't leave until your body's gone, or these important parts are gone. Anyways, the other thing that I find very fascinating with this is that this is probably one of the few cases where this is Jesus Christ. Let me restart this section. Holy God. The thing that I find most fascinating about this, Marie, is that this is one of the many another fucking instance where the women of the tribe are getting shit on because they're eating the goddamn brains. And so
yeah, man. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly, hey, I've got it. What I also love is that the Royal British Society came up with Transumption, which is so fucking awesome and so elitist.
Right?
For, basically saying they're eating other people. This is transumption. No. What it is it's cannibalism. They're eating other people. But we're going to put this nice sort of more rarefied, literary, educational spin on it.
Now, the really interesting thing that I think is really cool with this paper is that it's actually available for free online. So we're going to put a link to it from PubMed right on the website, so you can go and read this whole paper. It's really fascinating.
That is fascinating
about the spread of Peru.
Even though I'm dogging on it, it is very.
It's very cool. All right.
Very cool.
Anywho. Hey, Marie, you know what's awesome?
I'll tell you what's awesome. Besides cannibalism? No, I've got nothing. Go ahead.
The Dark Myths Podcast Collective.
Oh, they are awesome. They are pretty good. They're
pretty fucking great.
Bunch of pods.
And the thing is, too, that this month we have a special podcast from the Dark Myths Collective to be highlighting for all of you. Now, you know that my tastes run more towards the scientific side and facts, whatever. I definitely read a lot of nonfiction books.
Yes.
And Marie is the artistic side of this whole enterprise here.
Which loosely interpreted means I will make shit up at the drop of a coin. Fuck it, man.
Fuck it. Now, we have a really great show for you to check out this month. Now, we have a great show for you to check out this month. It is called A New Winter from the Dark Myths Collective. So, A New Winter is an audio drama podcast set in a small British town in the winter of 2000. When a series of murders and disappearances start to occur, one man makes it... I have to start that again. Fuck! So, A New Winter is an audio drama podcast set in a small British town in the winter of 2000. When a series of murders and disappearances start to occur, one man takes it upon himself to try and solve this horrific mystery by delving into the unknown. This is his story. Subscribe now and enter this mysterious town. Who knows? You may never leave.
Here's what I like about this. It is very atmospheric.
Yes.
And gets you right away. And that to me is like you, I'm not a huge follower of dramatization in podcasts.
No, but this one's really great.
This is some good spooky shit, y'all.
This one's awesome. I highly suggest it. We highly suggest it. Please check it out. Follow them on Twitter. Follow them on Facebook. Do all the cool stuff you do for us for them. And please, we would love to hear if you like the show. And that's great. It's going to be awesome. You guys are going to love it. And listen to the Dark Myths Collective. We are a very proud member.
So I would say one of the other Venn diagram circles in cannibalism that we actually haven't really talked about is survival cannibalism.
Yes, 100%.
So we've talked about sort of cannibalism for spite, right, and revenge, cannibalism for spiritual, but what about basically cannibalism for necessity?
Right, I guess, right.
No other option except for eating other people. And
the difference between self-directed cannibalism, like I am going to be a cannibal today, versus holy shit, we're stuck in the forest without any food, and Billy just croaked, and his leg is looking mighty fine.
It it's starting to snow. It's getting cold. We've eaten all the shoes. We've eaten all of the oxen, the horses, the dogs.
We've eaten all of our kuru.
We've eaten all the kuru. There is no other option except to begin to eat the corpses.
Yeah.
And I think that this is within, again, sort of secondary to like the new idea of the romanticized cannibal. This is hugely popular and has really permeated a lot of literature and a lot of art, and a lot of, I would say, just in general.
And it's fucking happened.
And it happens, which is like fucking, like, can you imagine, like, that's where you're at? Like, that's where your headspace is at? Like, and everybody knows, like, Donner Pass or Alfred Packard, which I went to the University of Colorado, and Alfred Packard was the unofficial mascot, which kind of, they had Alfred Packard Day, which you would go out and they would have huge barbecues and, like, you know, beer fest, and it was like, yeah, let's celebrate cannibalism. But anywho, but there's if you look at the Essex, which was a ship that was a whaling ship that was sunk by a whale, and the survivors were able to get into a boat. However, the result of it was that they ran out of food, they ran out of water, and they ended up having to eat one another. That's the inspiration and the true story behind Moby Dick. Mm-hmm, so, and you know, and I would say that Melville doesn't really get into so much. You know, he's much more interested in the ginormous white whale.
Oh my god!
And other people eating people.
Really
but
quick,
it is part of that. Yes.
You don't know how badly I wanted to love Moby Dick, Marie.
Seriously, Moby Dick's awesome. What did you love about that? That's
Dude,
a great story.
I loved most of it, but then there were chapters where he's like, let me tell you about baleen whales. And it's like, oh my god, shut up! Shut up, you idiot! I'm not reading this book about baleen whales. I'm reading about the giant fucking white whale that's fighting with Ahab.
So I keep
and
Queequeg and Starbuck, right? Starbuck is the first mate. So I love Moby Dick, and the reason I love Moby Dick was because the first mate said no one should get in the boat who doesn't fear the whale.
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
if you do not fear what is going to kill, like, and that is ultimately what kills them, is that they have no fear in a lot of ways. Like, they're driven to kill the thing that makes no sense to them. But if you come not in the boat if you do not fear the whale. Or I can't even remember the exact quote. I've been trying to find it I've even gone back and reread it, and I'm like, maybe that was in the TV adaptation. I can't remember, but it is one of my favorite stories.
Maybe you thought of a ballin' quote.
I don't know. It is a fucking ballin' quote, and I'm like, man, that is some good shit. But like, I never had an idea that the Essex was behind it, and also another from the similar time period was the SS Terror and the Ibris, which was basically Franklin's doomed attempt to find Northwest Passage, right? So a very famous, it's 1845, Sir John Francis.
We should do an episode on the Northwest Passage.
Oh, the Northwest Passage is nobody's bitch, man. It has put every single explorer, or a number of them, to shame, and to basically... That
was a myth that fucked people up real hard for a long time.
Fucked them up, and basically, again, like...
Interesting.
A famous explorer, is going to take these two ships out, is going to figure this stuff out, went up there, froze, and then... the legend that comes out of it, it's basically a lot about cannibalism, and it is sort of this idea that if you overstretch, if you overassume, if it's hubris driven for the idea of conquest and of exploration, not for knowledge but for gain and for country, then you will end up eating one another in the frozen snow. And I will say, Dan Simon's another awesome book, The Terror, is about this story, and it is some creepy shit, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. So I think that what we're getting at here is that there's also a very fine moral line with cannibalism in many ways, right? If you were stuck on a boat capsized at sea, where you were not land in any sight, no hope of rescue for the time being,
frozen in the snow, the ice,
and you had to eat for another, you had to survive for another day or two, right? Just in case you could survive. Would you eat someone who had already died on the ship? You don't even have to kill them; they're already dead, right? It's an interesting question, and the thing is, though, too, that I mean, that is a very interesting moral question. There are some really interesting legal questions about cannibalism ongoing today. So this came up a little bit. This idea of cannibalism as a sexual thing. God help us all. Every day we stray farther from his light, Marie. I fucking love that meme so much. I love it. I love, like, you see someone on, like, on, I don't know. I can't even think of it. On, like, Yahoo Answers, and it's like, when will they make anime real? And then someone will put, like, every day we stray farther from his light. I'm just, I laugh like crazy every fucking time. Anyways, so it was a recent case in New York City where a cop was, or I think he was a cop.
Yeah, he was a cop. He was a cop.
Was arrested for seemingly planning to torture and eat an ex-girlfriend, pretty much. And he was on a forum. He was on a forum online for people that are cannibal fetishists, right? And so, but his isn't even the craziest fucking story about this, right? There's an even crazier story about it, if you can believe it.
Serve and protect.
So this is the story of Armin Muse. So Armin Muse was a German computer repair guy, and he is now known as the Rottenburg Cannibal, or Der Metzgermeister, or the Master Butcher. So what Muse did basically was he was a member of a online message board where he would discuss his fetish for killing and eating someone else, and he put an ad up basically asking if anyone wanted to be eaten by him, if anyone was willing, and a lot of people. And the thing is, like, a lot of, which is normal Tinder, we'll call it Tender. That's the best one so far. Now,
for those of you keeping track at home, that's about 7. That's excellent.
About 7.
That's about
phenomenal.
7 excellent.
It's a pretty good one. It's a pretty great one. They've all been pretty phenomenal. So the issue. So here's the thing. He posted this thing asking if anyone wanted to be eaten. It was a couple of years later that Bernd Jürgen Armando Brandis, an engineer from Berlin, answered his advertisement and was like, yeah, you know what? I kind of do want to be killed and eaten by someone else. And they agreed. They wrote they had a contract. They actually videotaped it. They were emailing back and forth. The day before, Brandis supposedly kind of cheekily emailed him and was like, "Well, I'll be the breakfast, LOL." And it's like, dude, you're gonna be dead tomorrow. Like, what are you doing? And so he gets there with him. They're planning on videotaping this whole thing. He gets there. Brandis says, "You know what? I don't think I can go through with it. I'm chickening out." And he goes, "Well, what if you drugged me and got me really drunk?" Right? So he suggested that supposedly to him. Muse is like, "Yeah, I mean, I paid you to get eaten, and you're not getting, eating's not happening, so we're gonna, what's happening here? You know what I mean? I got a refund." So then he drugs him, he, gets him drunk, whatever. It gets really gross. They end up eating a part of Brandis's body together. Supposedly, right? And then Brandis died. He died.
Oh, yeah, probably from blood loss, right? I mean, neither of these two.
He put him in a bath to run it out, and so it's pretty crazy. So he ended up finally murdering him by stabbing him in the throat and then hanging the body on a meat hook after he strangled, or he stabbed him. Whoa. And then he ate 44 pounds of the guy.
Dude.
Okay. So Muse was then arrested. He was convicted. And the thing was, when he got arrested, the reason that he got arrested was because he almost got away with it. The reason he got arrested was that he posted on the forum again being like, yo, this worked really great last time. Let's do it again, somebody. And so some guy that evidently was just, pie curious. What do we say? Someone who was just a little bit, unsure about if he actually wanted to be eaten or not, called up the police. Called the police and was like, I think this guy actually ate someone. Holy shit.
This is beyond gray area at this point. This isn't just fetishism talking in fantasy land. I think he might have eaten someone.
So him and Brandis, Muse and Brandis met in 2001, of March of 2001. He was arrested in December of 2002. So he was, doing pretty good for a long time and not in trouble. Right? Now in prison, he is a vegetarian. He says that he thinks there are around 800 cannibals in Germany alone.
Really?
Okay.
I mean, how? But I don't know. I mean, how? Again, what's his data set? Where's he getting this from? Is this randomized? What's this? What's the control? What's this control?
What's this control? Now,
is this a double blind?
The interesting thing, of course, it's not. The interesting thing, it's a double rub, Marie. It's double breaded. Oh Jesus! I was really we had a really great dinner tonight. Katie's a phenomenal cook, and now I'm thinking about the leftovers in the fridge, and I'm like, Anyways, the interesting thing with this is, where do we draw the line at what consent is?
Yes.
Can you give consent to be murdered by someone and eaten?
No. And I would say no. We were having this discussion. I feel that, he did not give consent. Or there's no way that this man, or so this person who comes and he's like, I want to be, basically, he is saying he wants to be killed. He wants to die. It's not a fetish about being eaten. It's a fetish about he's suicidal. So really, if he's in this space, it's a cry for help. It's not a cry to actually have something like this happen. Even if that's what his intent is, and he's sitting there with a knife and he's saying, you can drug me, and then we're going to cut off my arm and eat it. That still does not, is in my mind, still does not consent to the fact that you should do this. There is, and again, Nietzsche may disagree, but that's where I would say, hey, you know what? We live in a world that this is not something that is acceptable. We get help.
We draw the line. We draw the line generally as a society at making mistakes that can ruin your life.
Yes.
Unless they have to do with money, in which case we let you ruin your fucking life.
Fuck yeah.
Anyways, that's for the politics episode.
Or health.
Anyways,
I mean, by all means.
Or health too. Yeah. Now here's the interesting thing, right? We're talking about all this stuff about cannibalism in the human world, but where does cannibalism come from? Right? Is cannibalism a natural thing? Right now, this has a lot to do with the way that I just said that suggests something called the naturalist fallacy, which we've talked about a lot on the show. Basically, what it is that if something is natural, if it seems to be the way things have always gone, if it seems the way that nature intends something to be, it must be the right thing, right? We ought to do something if it's natural, and that's not usually the case because a lot of things are natural that are terrible, and this is probably one of those cases. So interestingly, humans are not the only great ape that cannibalizes themselves. So chimpanzees in the wild have been seen to cannibalize people, Jesus Christ. Chimpanzees in the wild have been seen to cannibalize other chimpanzees. And that's actually true of bonobos as well. Now, the interesting thing is that it's relatively common for them to cannibalize and kill members of other chimpanzee social groups, right? So this is this is actually a abstract from a paper that Jane Goodall wrote called Infant Killing and Cannibalism in Free Living Chimpanzees from Folia Primatologica. And so the abstract to this goes, quote, and it's from 1977. Abstract. Male chimpanzees at the Gombe National Park were twice seen to attack stranger females and seize their infants. One infant was then killed and partially eaten. The other was rescued and carried by 3 different males. Once, several males were found eating a freshly killed stranger infant. A similar event was observed in Uganda by Dr. Suzuki, and Dr. Nishida reports an incident from the Mahale Mountains, Tanzania. A different kind of killing occurred at Gombe, when a female and her daughter killed and ate 3 infants of other females of the same community during a 2-year period. There is evidence suggesting that other infants may have died in this way. Now, it's relatively common.
Wow.
Right? It's not super common, but it is relatively common. And like they said, it's not just found in other social groups, right, where it's like 2 tribes of chimpanzees attacking each other. It's found within the same tribe sometimes for dominance or for mating position or whatever. Now, and interestingly, though...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, to jump in, again, it's not just male chimps. It's female chimps. It's
females as well, so it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing as well. It has now been reported relatively recently, so this is from January of 2017, that not only do they do this for seemingly social hierarchy reasons, they also seem to do it because they have rage almost or hatred for an ex-member of their group. So this story is from Senegal. A group of chimpanzees. So they had an alpha male. This group of chimpanzees. I don't know what you call it. A group of chimpanzees. I know it's a cuddle of pugs, but I do not know for chimpanzees.
What is it? Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of the
animal talking or whatever episode.
No, it wasn't animal talking. It was people setting on fire. It was spontaneous combustion, and you were like,
that was a good one.
So hey, by the way, a group of bunnies is called a cuddle.
It's pretty phenomenal. So
like this is not nearly as sickening as I thought it was because bunnies are so cute. Okay.
So chimpanzees have, like we said, a social hierarchy, and so they're the way it works is there's usually like one alpha male, and then he has kind of like a group of other males around him that kind of back him up.
Yes, it's it's like Entourage.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like it's like I don't know, Kid Rock or something,
exactly.
Or like fucking. The lead singer of the band is the leader, but then, you got like the bass player and the drummer and whatever. Anyways, now, and I played bass and drums, so it's not anything.
And again, I will point out, this is not at all like punk rock. Punk rock, again, is your outlier. Not at all. Keep going. Your
outlier. Now, this group of chimps had a leader. Fudoku was his name. And he was leader in 2005. He fell from power after a group of young males overtook him. And then he was on the outskirts, kind of living in the surrounding forest. Now, usually, older males who get kicked out of a group die pretty quickly because they don't have the support of this group of apes that were helping them, right? Now, insanely...
They've got no super PAC. There's no super PAC.
Now, insanely, he came back to the group for some reason, and the alpha males murdered him and then ate his body. And like as they were eating it, they like were screaming and like smashing him with rocks. There's a video of it. It's really crazy. It's quite chilling. But it brings up the question of is cannibalism is it an evolutionary thing? Is it something? It seems to play some role within the social hierarchy of these chimpanzees. So is it really that outrageous that we do it as well? Right? We're ultimately just kind of less hairy. Some of us are less hairy. I can't speak for myself. But some of us are less hairy apes. Right? We're just kind of apes with brains. Yes. So, it
again,
brings up a very interesting question.
This is where I would make a joke about Congress. And I'm not going to.
We're not going to.
I'm saving it. Okay. Yes.
Now, here's the thing. I think we actually need to have its own episode on evolutionary biology, Marie.
I agree.
do you think?
I think it's one of those highly debated things because it's like you make these assumptions where you're like, well, yes, X plus Y definitely equals where we are now, Z, but that doesn't hold water when you actually understand or look at any kind of evidence or any kind of
So here's what I think we
biology.
do then. This episode has gone super long.
Yes.
Let's come back next roundtable with an episode on evolutionary biology.
Dig it. Yes.
Awesome. Well then, let's sign out, Marie.
So, are we going to delete this whole part, or what are we doing?
No. We're gonna end it right there.
Ah, dude. Okay.
Does that sound good?
I think that sounds good.
Cool. And then we'll do contest winners next time as well. We'll give them another week.
Yes.
To stew.
Cool.
All right.
You haven't told them that they've won?
No, not yet.
Dude, that's cold. Okay, wait. Should I pause it? I'm gonna pause it.
No. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
This is fine.
Okay. Who was the cat?
That was Seaborg.
Oh my god, that's a cute. I'm sorry, but we got you guys
cute.
screaming.
Oh, and Chippy. It's fine. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this. Okay. So, all right,
Sign
listeners. Well, thank you. Thank you, listeners, for joining us tonight on the Mad Scientist Roundtable. Once again, I am your host, Chris Cogswell, with my co-host
Marie. I'm gonna become a vegan Mayhew.
Marie. I'm going to become a vegan Mayhew. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks with an episode continuing the cannibalism topic and evolutionary biology. Something, well, probably more evolutionary biology than cannibalism, frankly. But still very interesting.
I'm going to sneak as much cannibalism in as I can.
We'll begin on the question of what does chimpanzee cannibalism have to do with humans? And how do moral behaviors come from animal behaviors? Right, a very interesting topic, I think.
Yes, and am I destined to eat anybody who pisses me off at work? It's a good question.
Is Marie destined for that? It's a phenomenal question.
It's an open-ended question. It could be yes. It could be.
It could be yes.
Yes.
And next roundtable, we will announce the winners of the Be a Mad Scientist podcast contest. The Be a Mad Scientist contest for the Mad Scientist podcast.
Oh.
That's hard to say. Jeez, Marie. Anyways, so if you would like to enter the contest still, you have one more week to do so. You have a couple more days, so please get those entries in.
Yes, but I will warn you. now, new entries. Got some stiff competition.
The other entries are pretty fucking awesome, really.
It is like, yeah, I'm worried that you guys actually are all government funded. Spooks.
Oh, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Almost certainly.
And we're just...
Thank you again.